We're the ones who step up for each other. I've got your back. You've got mine. Kindness, humility, empathy. It's not just talk. It's who we are. It's who we always have been. And no one can take that from us. The movement to bring it back, it started here. And here. And here. In school gymnasiums, community centers, the living room down the block. You'll be where? Okay, we'll be there. Who are we? We're the movement that will beat Donald Trump. Welcome. We're going to have to sweat for it. We're going to have to sacrifice and fight. We're going to have to lead. Everyone is going to have to lead with kindness, humility, empathy, and not just talk, but action. Action today, action tomorrow. Action until we win. And we will win if we do this together. It's who we are. It's who we always have been. Now let's show them.
Thank you for joining this Biden for President New Hampshire Build Back Better Roundtable with Mayor Pete Buttigieg. And now, please welcome Manchester Community College President Brian Bicknell.
Good morning. Thank you all for joining us today to talk about advanced manufacturing, education, and jobs. I'm Brian Bicknell. I'm the president of Manchester Community College. And first, I'd like to introduce Mayor Pete Buttigieg. Everybody knows Mayor Pete. He was a two-term mayor of South Bend, Indiana. He served as a lieutenant in Afghanistan. He ran for president of the United States, and he won the Iowa caucuses. And he also has a sterling academic pedigree, including Harvard and being a Rhodes Scholar. Mayor Pete, welcome.
Well, thank you, Dr. Bicknell, and thanks to everybody who's part of this panel that I think is going to be a great discussion that reminds us of why our economy has a very bright future, if and only if we make the right kinds of investments. And thanks to everybody for participating. I sincerely wish that I was with you in person, that we were in New Hampshire right now, because we have such great memories from the campaign trail there. But this is the next best thing, and it couldn't come at a more important time. America is experiencing the toughest shocks, economic-wise, public health-wise, and I would argue morally, that we have seen in my lifetime. And leadership is going to matter more than ever in terms of how we rise to meet this moment, build an economy that works for everybody, and get out of this pandemic crisis stronger than we were before. And the very name of the plan that Joe Biden has put forward, Build Back Better, says something really important, which is that we're not going to get to where we need to be just by trying to rewind to exactly where we were. The truth is, there were a lot of problems in our economy before we even came to this point. For too long, wages have been stagnating. The economy wasn't serving most Americans well. People did not have enough savings, even before this pandemic brought a full-fledged economic crisis, something we're seeing consequences of right now. I come from a part of the country where manufacturing is extremely important to our well-being and our way of life. And the truth is, manufacturing was in a recession even before this pandemic struck. But the good news is we have everything that we need as a country if we invest in order to come out in a different and better place, empowering workers with higher wages, but also with the skills that are needed in order to compete. And that is the business of so many of the people that you're going to hear from in a few minutes. I've seen firsthand the extraordinary power of unlocking the capabilities of advanced manufacturing. Manufacturing still has an image, I think, in a lot of people's imagination as a very kind of old school, dirty and dangerous business. When you go into facilities now that are on the cutting edge of American manufacturing, what you see is extraordinary productivity that positions America at the leading edge, but also that requires a lot up here, not only from engineers and people with PhDs involved in the process, but line workers as well. And that's why these investments matter so much. But in order to make the investments that will keep America competitive, we need the right kind of leadership in the federal government. And we just don't have it right now. For one thing, we need leaders who understand that every position of responsibility, especially the presidency, sets a tone, sets an example. I heard the president attacking Vice President Biden for wearing a mask. Wearing a mask is a simple way that you can set an example for others. And it's exactly the sort of thing you would expect a president to do. It ought to be table stakes. But not only do we have a president not setting the right example, we have a president actively making things worse. And unfortunately, that's going to play out right in New Hampshire, where his plan to hold a rally tomorrow is reckless, especially having seen in the aftermath of the Tulsa rally a spike in coronavirus cases there. And it was unfortunate to see the governor allowing that rally to happen and refusing to enforce executive orders that are intended to keep people safe. Just one example of why we need better leadership at the level of setting an example and calling people to their highest values, which is why that emphasis on kindness and humility and empathy is so important. Then when we get that big picture, that culture right, we have a foundation to build on with the more technical dimensions of good policy and the specific investments that are going to build toward a future economy that is more robust, more resilient, better to work in, better to live in, and more equitable too. And those long-term smart investments are going to create millions of good-paying jobs, the kinds of jobs that built my community here in the so-called Rust Belt, and the kinds of jobs that are so important, as I saw, one community at a time in New Hampshire. And that means the kinds of high-tech and smart manufacturing programs like what MCC and some of the other institutions that you're going to learn about this morning have to offer. The most important treasure we have as a country is, of course, the American people, a work ethic and a capacity that is unrivaled. In order to keep it that way, chest thumping won't be enough. Just talking about American greatness won't be enough. The conduct of this presidency and administration most certainly won't be enough. The people who work hard every day to equip a new generation of American workers with the skills they need to succeed and thrive deserve better support, and they will have it when Joe Biden is president. It's one of the reasons why I was motivated to support him, not just out of an awareness of what we're up against, although that should be motivation enough, but even more importantly, a sense of what we're for, a sense of the future that we could be building when we build back our economy better than it ever was. So with that, it's my pleasure to turn it back to Dr. Bicknell to guide the discussion with the folks who are on the front lines of building our economy and supporting the skill building that our workers need to succeed.
Thank you, Mayor Pete. Appreciate those words to get this started. At this point, I'd like to invite in our esteemed panel. And to get us started for all our panel members is going to be Dan LaRochelle. Dan is the Department Chair for Advanced Manufacturing and Robotics here at Manchester Community College. And I think, for my money, the best educator in the state. I mean, he's top notch. So Dan, why don't you lead us off here?
Sure. We have a very exciting and innovative advanced manufacturing program here at Manchester Community College. Our main focus is automation technicians. We have one-year certificates in robotics and mechatronics that can lead to two-year degrees in advanced manufacturing, as well as to prepare people for the workforce and align to four-year degrees for mechanical engineering technology at UNH Manchester, Southern New Hampshire, or Northeastern. So there's a lot of great opportunities for students. I said a word, mechatronics, that not a lot of people are familiar with. Mechatronics is a mechanical electrical system that you program to control a process. It's by far the most needed thing in the industry right now. You see it in robots building cars. You can see it in robots feeding CNC machines for 24/7 manufacturing. And you can also see it in 3D printing and carbon fiber and materials like metal and even tissue. One of the most exciting projects we're in right now is a program called ARMY, which was by Dean Kamen and a group of people around the country developing tissue foundries for the future. ARMY stands for Advanced Regenerative Manufacturing Institute. I'm on the Workforce Development Committee to help really create a new industry that really combines biomechanics and mechatronics. So it's a very exciting time to do that. Right now we're at an industrial revolution. Whether you call it Industry 4.0 or you call it smart manufacturing, Internet of Things, there is a real big need for multidisciplined workforce that can solve problems. And right now, people are looking for new collar people. Instead of our old blue collar jobs, these are multidisciplined problem solvers that can really work as a team and function as a union and really be flexible. We have some unbelievable industrial partners here in New Hampshire, Hitchner, Spray Systems, GE, L3, DECA. They're all big supporters of the program, and I can't produce students fast enough for these companies. Dean Kamen has done an amazing job in the mill buildings, really converting what used to be our old mill town 100 years ago into a high-tech epicenter of New Hampshire. Unfortunately, like Mayor Pete was saying, not a lot of people think that manufacturing is a really great career to go into. Young kids don't wake up and say, I want to be a manufacturing technician. It's just not what it's not, but we have to re-educate them into really making sure that they know what those opportunities are. We work a lot with CTE centers. We are teaching mechatronics programs right now at Conval, Milford, and Spark Academy, both at their high schools, as well as early college pathways where they can come onto the MCC campus. Another really cool initiative right now that we started, that I'm part of, is a thing called Spark Academy. And it's a brand new charter school located actually on the Manchester Community College campus. And students can earn a one-year certificate while they're in their high school program. So again, it's innovative things like this that really set us apart. We have a very strong apprentice program. CCS&H got a really nice grant a couple years back, and we've incorporated some customized apprenticeships through some of our industry partners. And we just got a grant to expand that program to high schools. So it's a really exciting time to be in advanced manufacturing. There's an amazing opportunity ahead of us. And funding programs like Perkins and NSF ATE are critical so community colleges like ours can really get the resources they need to be innovative and dynamic for this changing workforce. And if we want to bring jobs back to the US, we have to automate to be competitive.
Yeah, good points, Dan. One thing that both you and the mayor pointed out was, in terms of the perspective of advanced manufacturing, I think there are some people out there that unfortunately have this view that advanced manufacturing, these big brick buildings, and they're loud and there's a lot of soot and dust and they have this certain image, when the reality is 2 miles down the street from where I sit today, they're manufacturing tissues. And so it's a whole different ballgame now than what it was when you think of manufacturing. And so that's so critical, and both you and the mayor point that out. And I think we need to do more to get that word out, because if we did, you're going to have a lot more people getting into these education programs, and then it's going to help the economy tremendously. So thank you, Dan, for those words. Our next special guest, very excited. to announce Amanda Bastoni. Amanda really has been amazing. Has been in the field of education for 20 years. She now works at CAST as a research scientist. And CAST, some of you may know CAST, they developed the Universal Design for Learning to make education more inclusive. It's one of been the greatest innovations in education in a generation. And so, Amanda, welcome. We're excited to have you here. So the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. I just wanted to say that I'm extremely excited to be here to talk about two areas I'm very passionate about. First is career and technical education, CTE, which we used to call vocational education. CTE is really the place where industry and education come together to partner and collaborate. It is the place where that happens. And the impact of that collaboration on students is visible. Students who participate in CTE programs are more likely to graduate high school, they have higher GPAs, they do better on standardized tests, and they're more likely to complete college. So I think it's really important that we think about how CTE impacts education. The problem, as Dan has hinted at, is that until recently, education has had a very narrow definition of the kind of intelligence it values, and thus the kinds of students it invests in. And that is a real problem, especially when we think about the economy. So one metric that we've used for a while to guide us in our economy is the value of homes. So home value in small towns and in towns across the US is often linked to the number or the rates of students getting accepted into college. And I would really challenge us to stop grading the education system in that way, because college is not the end point, right? College is acceptance, doesn't tell us how many students are completing college. I would really encourage us to think about a new metric, which is success, career success as our new metric. So the other topic that I've been invited to talk about is access and equity. And I think since COVID-19, for myself and many educators, that topic has really risen to the surface, as it should. But the unfortunate news is that CTE has not historically done a good job in this area. For example, Black students, Hispanic students, students with disabilities, female students are not included or seen enough in our CTE programs. We need to do something about that. And we need to make sure that they aren't missing out on that collaboration that we talked about when industry and education come together. So just really quickly, I would make 3 recommendations along this line. I would encourage us to think about giving students opportunities for career exploration early and often. We need to make sure we're exposing them to things like Dan's program earlier and more often. Number 2, we need to give students access to work-based learning, all students access to work-based learning, to things like apprenticeships and internships like Dan talked about. And the last thing we need to do is make sure we are universally designing educational environments. So not just in CTE classrooms, but when we think about re-entry programs in corrections, when we think about job training programs in manufacturing, we need to make sure that we are creating a culture in our communities that values all career pathways and values all students. So that's kind of my 2 cents.
Amanda, those are good 2 cents. One thing I want to thank you for, Amanda. I know before coming on, you had to jump through all kinds of hoops to get your internet up and running. One thing that a lot of people probably can't see in Amanda's background, you see over there CTE. It's Amanda won the CTE Leader of the Year award in 2019, I believe it was, and she's a tremendous leader for our state for sure. Our next speaker is Travis Bebo, who is alumni of Manchester Community College and is now at UNH Manchester, getting his bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering technology, and works down the street at the DECA that Dan LaRochelle mentioned earlier. So Travis, tell us a little bit about your education and what you're doing today.
Sure. Yeah. When Dan reached out and asked about this, I was very excited to be able to kind of join the conversation and speak about my experience. The things I really wanted to touch on are just the quality and the variety of the education in the program and how that's been beneficial to me. mechatronics in general, and especially at MCC, is a really beautiful thing because it's less compartmentalized than a lot of other engineering disciplines, that it touches on electrical, robotics, mechanical design, control systems. And in preparation for this, I went through my old curriculum, and going through and looking at my courses, I realized there wasn't a single class that I didn't learn either a bit of knowledge or an actual technical skill that I don't use on a regular basis. It really every day is really coming through and helping me kind of in my career in this industry. And that's allowed me to work on a variety of really, really exciting products from all stages of development, from initial concept development, napkin sketch work, through prototyping, testing, the R&D, the manufacturing system development, final validation, all the way through to commercial production in a really fantastic environment. I really want to stress that advanced manufacturing is not dirty. It's not gross. I'm in a beautiful air-conditioned work floor. I'm working in clean rooms with just some of the most incredible, intelligent, bright people you could imagine. It's definitely not what I imagined. And I think if we're going to be looking to bring back manufacturing to this country, especially in a rapid pace, we're going to need the adaptive ability of the community college systems across the country to work with local industry, to modify curriculum, modify programs, to really be able to adapt to suit those needs. I've seen kind of firsthand how long it can take to bring some of these systems up and running. And it's some things that seem like, yeah, you know, we're gonna invest some money in this, we're gonna make it happen. It's a lot of work, and to have a resource like the community college system that can help shape and develop people with the exact skills that are needed by working closely with industry, I really think it's going to give us our best shot of being able to bring this vision to light. And I just want to thank Dan LaRochelle and Dr. Bicknell for all the work they do in the program. I've watched it evolve over the last few years, and I'm very happy and excited to see it continue to develop and work closely to keep bringing people in.
Thank you, Travis. I appreciate that. And Dan's really been the leader. You know, he's in terms of developing the program. My job is just to say, okay, Dan, go ahead. Thanks for those kind words, though. Mayor Pete, do you have any questions you want to throw out to anybody, or any other comments you want to throw on top of this?
You know, I would love. I feel like I'm getting an education just sitting here. I'm still getting my head around the concept of mechatronics. I love this thought of new collar jobs too, because as everybody on the panel has spoken to, you know, we're in a very different world in terms of what is really required and what the business of making things is like, and it engages the intellect of our workers. And so I would love to learn a little bit from maybe anybody who has thoughts on this about what matters most in terms of feeling like you're supported, whether it's just in terms of kind of the conversation and the message, because sometimes I know here in South Bend we worked hard just to, as a mayor, just to let students know about the opportunity there, or a little more concretely, right, where there are federal dollars like Joe Biden is proposing to expand, that are going to make a difference in your ability to meet the moment. And so I guess this is for anybody, but I'd love to hear about any perspectives on, you know, what more needs to happen from a federal level to make sure that, that as Travis was saying, that adaptability happens in these educational institutions that have a chance to really catapult our economy to the next level.
Dan, you mentioned a couple grants, NSF and Perkins and whatnot, but what other kind of support, I mean, take us to the department chair level, what other kind of support would be helpful? And then Amanda, you know, you mentioned equity and inclusion. You know, what kind of federal programs can you think of that would help advance that? Go ahead, Dan.
Sure. There's, you know, I mean, right now we currently have an NSF ATE grant. And basically that's really for community colleges to do this exact thing. It's based on, it's called the Mechatronics Awareness Project is the title of it. And it's really to make people more aware of what mechatronics is. And that's a small grant, and we plan to apply for a larger grant in the future. But those, you know, I had to learn how to be an NSF grant writer because, I mean, so making this money and these dollars more accessible to community colleges and making that path easier NSF has a great program called Mentor Connect, and I learned a ton from them, just so you can understand how the whole application process works. So whatever we can do to make that easier, because these programs aren't thousands of dollars, they're hundreds of thousands of dollars, $1 million programs. My robotics lab, I have over $2 million of equipment just in that one lab. So it takes a lot. It takes a lot of planning. It takes a lot of time. One of the neatest parts about this whole pandemic is you saw a bunch of manufacturers change gears. And that's how you can tell who those people really, if they're really doing flexible manufacturing, they're changing those gears to change their production, to change their things, to be adaptive and creative. And that's the kind of stuff we really need to start promoting and really funding. There's a whole thing of collaborative robots out there where you can put a robot right next to somebody and they can work directly with each other. Actually, Travis did his whole senior project working on a collaborative robot in my lab. So again, more funding opportunities are going to
I thought in order for us to build back better, we need more inclusion, right? Mm-hmm. And when I think about Manchester, the city of Manchester, the fastest growing population is youth at the poverty level. Well, there's a real opportunity there to create opportunities for social mobility, where you can go from, not to get all, but bottom quartile to the third or fourth quartile, right? Like there's real opportunities there. There's talent, there's energy, and so how do we work in a way so that those students that are right down the street from us right now can have the opportunities to work with Travis and collaborative robots?
Yeah, thank you, Dan, and thank you, Dr. Bicknell. So I want to answer that broadly, and then I'll get more specific. So just broadly, we need a value shift, which is what I talked about. We need to make sure we're valuing all pathways for students, and we need to have models like Travis and like Dan, and female models and models that students can relate to. So we need a broad shift in value. And then there are some really tangible things that we can do to solve this problem or start to create equity and access. For example, we have a lot of English language learners in Manchester and in Nashua. We need to make sure that we're supporting teachers so they learn strategies to support those English language learners. And we need to make sure we're giving them opportunities to engage in work-based learning. As I said, the United States Manufacturing Institute conducted research and found that the number one reason students make career decisions is their own experience. Number two is their parents, and then third is related to school. So what that tells me is we need to give students opportunities to get into manufacturing locations. We need to give them opportunities to visit Dan and Travis at work. And we need to make sure that not having access to a car or not understanding the paperwork needs to be signed by your parents, or having to take a prerequisite drive that diversity. So, it's like a broad value shift, and then it's very specific, tangible solutions that, as Dan mentioned, NSF and other organizations have research on. And the answers are out there, you just need to implement them.
All right. Mayor Pete, do you have other questions for the panel?
I think this question of inclusion is so important. I would also love to hear a little bit about how this integrates in communities. So knowing that, this is, the kind of CTE that Dr. Bastoni was talking about really needs to have a handshake with K through 12 education, knowing that, when Dan was saying that they can't generate students fast enough as Travis takes his place in a kind of professional community. That how does all this fit together, and what can we do to better support all those linkages? Knowing that this stuff can sound pretty technical, but really it's what makes Main Street look and feel better when all the pieces are working right. And I guess that question could go to anybody. So maybe I'll invite Dr. Bicknell to kind of guide it, but I'd be very curious for some perspectives on that from each of you.
Yeah, Travis, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I know one thing we're actually really deeply involved with here at DECA is FIRST Robotics, which is it's in pretty much every country in the nation across there. It really knows no bounds as far as just economic class or anything like that. And it's the whole point is to make robotics exciting and fun and teach problem solving and teamwork from, I believe it starts all the way at the elementary school level. And I know that's something that we're really into here at DECA. And that was something that Dean had founded. And it's honestly too, I see it all the time when we see resumes coming through. It's first robotics, first robotics, first robotics. And it's, you can't help but assume that early introduction to all of that is a really big part of the reason why the people that are aware of us here and are reaching out to us here are making it that far.
Yeah.
Yeah, Amanda, go ahead.
FIRST Robotics. I just want to also, draw our attention to students who are marginalized. So there are often students who are marginalized when it comes to participating in after-school activities for a variety of reasons. Maybe they have to work full-time to support their families, or they have to take care of their siblings. So not to negate anything Travis has said, Robot First is awesome. I would just say, and we need to make sure that we are embedding that kind of exploration and explorative pedagogy into the school system. And I just wanted to also add that I think we need to make sure we're bringing STEM to all populations. So I mentioned corrections already. Re-entry programs need to find ways to bring STEM learning and manufacturing into corrections. And we need to find ways to bring STEM learning and manufacturing to populations that we have, marginalized, because in the end, that's better for everyone.
Yeah, great points, Amanda. One of the things that Dan does here is robotics camps in the pre-COVID days, and we'll have them in the future again in a robotics competition. And one of the things that's so inspiring, Mayor, when you walk around during these camps or these competitions, you see middle school kids who, robotics and technology and this kind of stuff isn't part of their daily life in many situations. And then here they are making a robot that can do these amazing things. And then they have an engineer's notebook. So you have these and they're making notes to themselves. How do we improve it? And then they do stuff, and Dan puts them in situations that are difficult. And so when it doesn't work, then they go back and they say, all right, how do I make it better? And it changes, what you see is this transformation. It changes how they think about themselves, how they think about the world and what their place in the world is. And I think one of those books that you have behind you is Frames of Mind by Howard Gardner, and it's a frame of mind, right? It changes how they think about what they can do. Dan, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, again, this is all about, getting people exposed to this. I've written curriculum. I'm excited about technology, whether they're using robots or drones or 3D printers, but just getting them to explore stuff. A lot of people are like, oh, they're too young for that. These young kids will blow by you in 2 seconds with some of this software. Some of the freshmen at Spark Academy are using SolidWorks and got certified as freshmen. I have, again, the younger we can get technology into the hands of students, all students, is critical. One of the projects that me and Amanda worked on was robot algebra. And she could talk a little bit more about that, but that's an exciting thing because a lot of people have a hard time with algebra. And we're using robotics, just like Dean Hammond does with FIRST, to trick the kids into learning, okay? And then once they get comfortable about that, they're like, oh, well, how do I program? Or what does that sensor do? Now they're asking questions. I really feel that as a professor, I'm really a mentor than really a professor. And I'm really just kind of guiding those pathways to get people into the workforce.
Can I jump in?
Please.
Sorry, guys. I think robot algebra, I'm so proud of that endeavor, Dan. And one of the things I just wanted to add is that in robot algebra, we directly linked to careers. So exposing students to technology is really critical. Again, I totally agree with the panelists. I would just add that in addition to exposing them to technology, we need to make sure we're linking those skills and that technology to a future career. Because we need to show students they can go somewhere with this. And, you know, just to reiterate my earlier point, college is not an endpoint. Everyone has to, well, you know, hopefully everyone can have a career. That's where we're going with this. So I just want to make sure that we're linking industry into education and showing all students where the careers can be.
That's absolutely right. And I think that's also part of what helps the students form a level of trust that it's worth engaging in these programs when they can see what's on the other side of it. I'm glad you mentioned corrections. You know, one of the most powerful memories I have from my time as mayor was spending some time at the Juvenile Justice Center here in South Bend, where a nonprofit code school had engaged kids, and they presented to me the apps that they had created, web-based apps. We actually wound up using one of them partly for something we were doing in the city. These kids were intelligent. When somebody actually invited them to show what they can do, they stood up taller. And it's a reminder that across the spectrum of from the most marginalized to those who are the best set up for the future, everyone can gain from a climate where we're actually making the investments in getting these skills to people, whether they are going to go on to a university setting or not.
Excellent. We need divergent thinking. Sorry.
That's right.
I'm sorry, guys. We just need divergent thinking to be successful. Yep. Diversity in thinking leads to better products, right? It's not just, you know, it's not just to, you know, feel good, right? It's also a feel good, but it's also really critical to move the country forward.
Dr. Bastoni, I love that enthusiasm. You have a lot you want to share, so that's a beautiful thing. That's the kind of thing that gets you Leader of the Year. Dan, great job presenting all that you do and what happens here at the college. Travis, we're proud of you, and hopefully we can bring more people like you into advanced manufacturing. So, Mayor Pete, we're kind of at the end here. We just have a few more minutes. Do you want to put a bow tie on this?
Yeah, all I want to say is that this is what building a great economy looks like. It's not about putting up a wall. It's not about picking a fight with China. It's not about telling Americans who to blame. It's not about name calling. It is about investing in the extraordinary work that the people you just heard from are doing day in, day out to create opportunities that not only make the individuals better off who participate and gain by them, but make the country better off because our industry is more competitive. And this relates to the U.S., not only our prosperity here at home, but our standing in the world. We really want to be competing with China. If we want to be restoring the historic role of the U.S. as the leading nation around the world, we will stand up tall when we are fully harnessing these incredible capabilities, when we link industry, education, and technology together. But that doesn't just happen. The reason why these programs and these investments are important is that it takes intention, it takes policy, it takes resources to connect up these dots, to support these students and institutions, and even to support industry where appropriate in the work that they're doing. That's what it looks like to actually have a problem-solving mentality and build for the future. We can either continue down the path of tearing things down, or we can build up what is best in America and through that create a level of prosperity that we haven't yet seen in this country. It's moments like this, with all the pressure on our optimism that I think we're seeing in the wake of the pandemic, in the face of the anguish over racial injustice in this country. It's moments like this that give me a tremendous amount of optimism, because we see the glimmers of what a brighter, better future looks like in communities in every part of the country, from New Hampshire to my hometown here in northern Indiana, to every other part of the United States. But that doesn't just happen. We need the leadership to get it done. You can see how local and state and educational leaders are already doing their part. They deserve a president and a federal government who's going to back them up, not by rivaling people up and turning Americans against each other, but investing in just the kind of innovation that you just heard about through the extraordinary efforts of the people who are on this panel. So I hope that this lays out the choice And I hope that everybody who's following along decides to get involved. If you want to be part of this effort to turn the page and deliver a better and more collaborative federal government and a better economy that works for workers, please text jobs to 30330 so that you can connect with Joe Biden's campaign to restore the soul of America. And while we're at it, develop an economy that really does build back better. I want to thank each of the panelists for what you do day in, day out, and for what you've done sharing your time with us this morning. I want to thank everybody for participating. And I look forward to the chance when we'll be able to celebrate further achievements in person one day. But in the meantime, delighted that we were able to be here together by Zoom to talk about this incredibly important set of issues. Thank you.